Alrighty, Twitter Space officially kicked off. So this was this was actually our very first time attempting to do a company-wide Twitter Space. We had to actually reach out and get access on our 1Password account. So that was kind of funny. But I will do my quick intro to Twitter Spaces for anyone who has never used it. You have to be on an iPhone, I believe, still to speak. If you want to speak, I believe you can listen from the desktop, but you'll never be able to get on stage to speak when it comes to Q&A time. And then if we do have any other extension devs out there, web extension devs, today is going to be a heavy iOS 15, 1Password for Safari. We'd love to have a conversation with other web extension devs. So if we don't see you, which is very likely, feel free to just send me a DM and I'll look for you and try to bring you up for part of the conversation. So I think that's the start. Where's our friend Mitchell at?
I don't know. I do not see him.
Alrighty.
So I think we vamp a little more, and then we get things kicked off.
Copy that. Yeah, we're just waiting for the folks to get in the room here, so we can vamp a little bit. Yeah, where do you want to start, Nick?
I mean, do we start with how we have this thing running? I mean, I know you mentioned this was our first time sort of getting it set up, but like, you haven't even shared how we're running this Twitter space right now.
Yeah. So I didn't want my name attached to this almighty 1Password account. So I'm over here actually dual iPhoning because as far as I know, you could only use iPhone for Twitter Space. So I have two iPhones here, one with the 1Password account, and then various folks from the 1Password team are joining in on their iPhones as well. But this is my first time having to do dual iPhones, although one of them is a pro. So I think we have now established that Twitter Spaces are for pros. Speaking of iPhones, show of hands, who's getting that new iPhone Pro? iPhone 13 Pro, lucky number 13 Pro. Yes, Dave, nice. I have a local pickup. Oh, look at all those folks. Heck yeah. Yeah, we've always had a strong early adopter following. Yeah, I have an iPhone 13 pickup, I think at 8:15 a.m. at my local Apple store. So I don't get up before 9 a.m. for very many things, but iPhone pickup day is going to be an exciting one. Sweet. Nick, what iPhone are you getting?
So I'm getting a 13 Pro Max in gold, of course, because it's the only color. I know the blue looks really cool this year, and I know that's the one I think that you picked up, but I am attracted to the gaudy gold that just reflects the light like no tomorrow.
So I looked at that in the store. I had to rebase and look at what an iPhone 13 Pro in gold looks. And gaudy is, I think that's the correct term for it. That thing is really blinging.
It's audacious, and the back is nice with the champagne colored cream, but like honestly, it's just the gold that reflects the light. So I want to see yours though. I want to see that blue in person. I want to see if the Flex actually bring out something in the phone that I'm going to be sad about.
There's special ceramic flex or something in the blue, and so I am impartial to blue. If they had a purple one, I would have gotten purple, but I'm trying blue. I'm upgrading from the iPhone 12 last year. Honestly, the 12 and 13 base model phones are really great phones. I think the Pros are really not necessary, but I really want to try. I want to get that 3x telephoto lens. That's that and the 120 hertz refresh rate, because I used to pretend to be a gamer. Really attracted me to that Pro line. Mitch, I think you said you were going to get an iPhone now that Safari Web Extensions is out. Is that true?
Well, they're back ordered now until November, so I changed my mind again. But ironically, I actually did wake up to pre-order one, just not for myself. I got my mom a pink iPhone 13, which will be arriving to her place on Friday while I watch enviously and regret my decisions.
Yeah, it's rare that Apple releases a software feature that makes Mitch want to upgrade his iPhone, but apparently the rollout of Safari Web Extensions, which we'll get into in a minute here, but I think is one of the most underrated, least talked about features of iOS 15. And of course, where 1Password spent a lot of our time investing, and a lot of our time in a very short period of time, I should say. So before we get into that, I would like to say today is an incredible day. Don't get to talk about this much in the blog post because people don't care as much, I guess, or it's not a huge story. But I do want to say that it has been an extreme honor to see the reception to 1Password for Safari today. I remember joining Dave on a team of, I think, only one other person, two other people at the time, and we started down this kind of new 1Password in the browser story. It was before we even named it 1Password X, but eventually when we launched it around the time of the iPhone X, not that those two things are tied together, it was called 1Password X, and I was there personally inviting the first 10, 20, 30 people to join our little private beta. And at the time, this was the only way you could run 1Password on Chrome OS, only way you could run 1Password on Linux. We almost named it 1Password for Linux. I don't know if you folks remember that, Mitch and Dave, but we almost named it 1Password for Linux, I think. I'm glad we didn't, because now we actually got to launch a Linux app a few years later. But I just got to say, today was really, really cool to see, because essentially some of that same root code that we started on that project a few years ago for 1Password, the new web extension, the entire app that you can run in your browser, is now on iOS. And that is just such a huge kind of accomplishment and really exciting for us. You got anything you want to kick us off with, Mitch?
I'm thinking back. I'll never forget how you and Dave basically sat me down with a big picture of Mojito and basically pitched me on the idea of this project. I think it must have been 2017, even 2016, and how important it was going to be. And you were 100% correct. It's amazing to see how this idea, which seemed like an offshoot of our main product at the time, became so fundamental to what 1Password is today. So, and that's definitely what I'm excited for us to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Christian, I would love to get you into some of this conversation. So if you want to join us, feel free to request access to come up. We'd love to hear other people talking about
invite him too.
What? I can invite people? Okay.
Yeah, just tap on him and then
done. Yeah, if you want to come jump up, we're going to talk about web extensions a little bit in just a few minutes. But yeah. So with that, I think we're done vamping. That's 10 minutes, right? We got a bunch of folks in here. Let's roll into iOS 15 and kind of what we're most excited about, which is web extensions. I said it a little earlier, but it's the most underrated feature of iOS 15, in my opinion. I was reading an article on, I believe, was it Mac Stories? Mac Rumors, right? And they had a list of the top 10 features on iOS. One of them was, the literal number one was FaceTime for Android. And I was like, wait, what? This is number one on the list? I hope this isn't in the list of priorities of features, but holy cow, I was kind of saddened to see web extensions wasn't there. But I do know that Federico Vitici had a really cool segment in his iOS review. So if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Nick just shared the tweet. Add it to your little read list, because I think he does a pretty good justification for how cool Safari web extensions are. And one of the really cool things about him is he even basically has hired someone to write him a custom web extension to help him do his kind of workflow for research and writing, which is really, really cool. And I was super stoked. I believe, I'm not positive, but this might have been the first time that 1Password got featured into his iOS review. So super excited to see us there. And it really did start my morning off well. It was kind of awkward because we were expecting to launch our blog, launch the version before reading an iOS review about it. But hey, he beat us to the scoop. So that was pretty cool to see.
So, Andrew, is this the most exciting feature in iOS 15 or the most exciting feature in iOS ever?
I mean, oh gosh, that's a hard one. I gotta say, when the App Store launched and I saw Super Monkey Ball and 1Password came to iPhone for the very first time, that was probably the most exciting feature for me. But it's kind of hard to say. Maybe if Safari web extensions came first, I would be more excited. It's hard to say, but this is definitely by far Yeah, definitely top 5. And I'm a little biased. For those of you who don't know, I'm in charge of the kind of engineering organization here at 1Password that develops this web extension. It is the cross-platform 1Password experience that we've always wanted, spanning all of the browsers, all of the operating systems on desktop, and now it's here on iOS and iPadOS. So it's a very exciting time to be in this area, and definitely one of the reasons why I would love to hear some of our other web extension friends come chat with us about it. So I don't know, Christian, do you wanna give us some thoughts on your web extension development experience and kind of how this whole iOS 15 release has been for you? Love to hear from someone outside of 1Password crew.
Yeah, am I audible?
We hear you.
This is my first time here too.
Welcome to the Twitter space.
Yeah, no, it was thanks, I appreciate that. No, it was a real hoot for me too. I've never done any of the I guess website of things. I've mostly dabbled in the native side, so this was my first exposure to JavaScript in any real way. So I was very much looking up like document.get element by ID, and yeah, it was very like first year university. I'm trying to do everything, but I think I found my my Bambi legs by the end of it a little bit, and it was really fun. Like I think you completely nailed it. Like the stuff you can do with the Safari extensions is like, I feel like we're really only just scratching the surface.
Do you want to give the folks a little introduction on your iOS app? And
yeah,
some
for sure.
Extensions you've made. I think Nick just shared a tweet from Christian as well. But yeah, let's hear about it.
Yeah, so I guess long story short, I make Apollo for Reddit, which is like a third-party Reddit client for browsing Reddit on your iPhone. And one of the features people have requested for a long time for Apollo was being able to open Reddit URLs directly into Apollo, where before it was a little bit of jumping through some hoops to get into there. You had to like copy it on your clipboard or something, and Apollo would hopefully detect it. But with Safari extensions, you can kind of act as the middleman a little bit more and be like, hey, that's a Reddit URL. You want me to help you out there? So I was able to do some pretty cool stuff there. Like now in the new Apollo update, it'll detect the Reddit URLs, automatically pipe you in right to Apollo, which I think it's only been a few hours, but people seem pretty jazzed about that already. And I released 2 other little apps. One grabs AMP URLs, so like the accelerated mobile pages by Google, and which can be, depending on who you ask, a little bit of a pain in the rear. And it can kind of intercept those and bring you to the normal counterpart instead. And that's been a really nice thing to have for myself. And thankfully, a few users out there share my contentment with AMP. So they've enjoyed that as well. So it's been a lot of fun kind of seeing what you can do out there with Safari extensions. And I've really had a lot of fun building with them.
Yeah, man, that's absolutely awesome. I think that's one of the coolest things about web extensions is, well, I mean, your kind of Reddit link grabber there. I'm sorry, you probably have a way better name for it, but that's basically something.
No, I'm going to write that one down.
There's an iOS limitation, right? Like iOS does not allow your app to expose a way to take these links and pipe them directly into Apollo. And for those of you who don't know, Apollo is actually, it's the best third-party Reddit application. I would say in some ways better than the first-party Reddit application. It's a really good app. So if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. If you use Reddit, of course, it's a very good app.
That means a lot. We're blessed with a lot of great choices.
Yeah, so that's a really cool. I mean, I saw that today on Twitter, and I was like, "Holy cow, this is really amazing!" Because what's cool about opening up web extensions to iOS is we're starting to see extensions do things that we never saw on the desktop, right? Like that wasn't really something you needed on the desktop. So we're starting to see this space. I think the other one, Nick can hopefully pin a tweet to, is somebody, well, actually, I think a couple somebodies have built Web Inspector for Safari on iOS, a feature that you could never do on your iPad, on the road. You're just browsing the web. Maybe you want to make a tweak to the DOM. Maybe you want to remove an element. You could never do that without hooking into a Mac and opening up Safari and kind of being in this like debug mode, right? So we're just scratching the surface. I think that's the best way to phrase it, of like how powerful web extensions are on iOS 15. And I think the really big one is like, you can now be just like a JavaScript developer and ship apps on iOS, especially if your app is something that, you know, engages with Safari already. That's really, really cool part of that. What are your thoughts on that, Mitch?
So I mean, it's really the same story as on my desktop. I spend most of my time on my iPhone in Safari. So having the ability to change that experience like really changes my iPhone experience. And what I found so far, like it's early days and I can't wait to see what extensions I actually discover, is some of them are the same as the ones I use on my desktop, but some of them are different. So I'm using turn off the lights, which like I like to sit on my iPhone in bed, and like it suddenly becomes a blinding light when you switch to a light mode web page. And on the desktop, I don't really care; it's fine. But on my iPhone, that's a big deal. So now having the ability to have dark mode extend to the app that I spend 3/4 of my time in is almost as important as adding it to the system in the first place. And I'm sure there are going to be others like that. I'm really interested in seeing video mode and how it can sort of power up. Again, the other thing I spend most of my time on my iPhone doing, which is like watching videos on YouTube and other services. And I'm curious to see if that'll even create sort of a third-party YouTube experience that's actually competitive with YouTube's own app. And I just love how developers can now create they can modify sites they don't own, which is sort of an interesting thing about web extensions. It has some privacy implications, but it's also lets people be creative. It lets people extend. I mean, services like Reddit. Like on the desktop, I used to love the Reddit enhancement suite, and on mobile, I love Apollo because it's basically that for Reddit. And I'm curious to see if extensions will encourage people to do more things like that to various services and mobile websites.
Yeah, definitely. I already saw some really cool CSS styling extensions where it's not like you have to have the CSS you want to style on the page. It's live right there on the page. You just launch the extension. You're like, oh, I want a different color background. I want this. Like some of those things are silly to some people, but they're like game changing from accessibility reasons. Just like you said, being in the middle of the night, using your iPhone in bed instead of going to sleep like I was last night. Like there's all sorts of reasons there. So I did start off with saying, holy cow, the 1Password team managed to kind of bring over 1Password for Safari, which we already kind of had for a Safari web extension. It has kind of launched with our new 1Password apps. And I will say that Safari web extensions are getting even better with macOS 12. So there is and Safari 15 on macOS 12. There's this bug that's always been bothering us where the popover, when you click on it, would take way too long to open, and it afflicted every web extension out there. But it's really cool to see that the Safari team and the WebKit team in particular for that bug have gone and fixed that. So essentially the exact same experience you're getting on your iPhone and iPad on macOS 12 is just chef's kiss awesome. You can run it today on macOS 11, but it's a little slower than we would like. And I'm just really happy to see kind of some of those bugs get worked out. And I'm really excited to see the future because we encountered quite a few challenges in the development process. So with that, I do want to note that essentially here in the US, we're across the entire world, but here in the US, from the day that they announced Safari web extensions on iOS to today when we launched it for 1Password was about 72 working days, including WWDC week where we were hacking on it. And that's a heck of a challenging development process. So Nick, what do you have to share about that? What did you learn? What went well? What could have been better? I know we have a bunch of developers in the group, so I feel like we can talk nerdy for a few minutes.
I definitely hope so. I think one of the most fun things to look back at is a couple of days ago, right before launch, I looked back at I think it was last Friday when we were doing our space. I looked back at our tweet from DubDub, and like within the 8 hours of the day, they announced Safari web extension support in the keynote, and a couple of us sort of just like sat and within a couple hours were able to get this thing up and running. And I don't know if you friends have gone back to look at that screenshot because it definitely shows a different 1Password. It shows that we hadn't like integrated our UI yet. We hadn't sort of like done all the things. We hadn't even touched the iPhone. I shared some development pictures in our Slack today of like where we started with iPhone, and it's amazing to see the progress that we've made from day one when it looked very funny to today, where I'm actually very proud and very happy with what the team was able to accomplish. There were a lot of challenges, as you mentioned, Bayer. The iPhone is a completely different environment. There are some RAM limits that we ran into as we developed that were really fun to try and work around. And huge shout out to Rudy, who I don't think is in the room, for actually pushing through those with us. And another big one was we are no longer a persistent background page extension on iOS, which, to get a little nerdy, means basically that at any point the code running 1Password can just sort of be torn down and spawned back up later. And so any of the the things that we need to do to maintain state, your fill sessions, all of the fun things that you think about what 1Password does, they need to be able to be in the state where they can be torn down and brought back up at a later date. And so there were a lot of really fun but difficult challenges. And as you mentioned, like 72 days is not a long time to sort of get those settled. And I don't think it would have happened without the people on the team, Ollie, yourself, Bayer, and also the people from the product org to help cut down what the actual product was by the end of it. So I don't know if there's a specific thing you want to touch on in there, Bayer, but I'd be happy to talk more development with you.
No, I think that was a great overview. I do want to, before we forget, and before we go into the Q&A, and I completely forget, I do want to give a quick shout out to the W3C Web Extensions working or committee, as a community group. So if you could pin that tweet, that would be really great. If anything we talk about here today is of interest to you as a developer, as someone who's literally never made an iOS app or an app in your life and want to try it, this is kind of the new group that are going to be setting the standards for the future of web extensions. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm really excited to see that both Apple, Timothy Hatcher, who works on the Safari team, and Simeon from Google, who is the developer advocate for web extensions over there, are coming together to co-chair this thing. And we really do need a diverse set of developers, both in people, but also in like fields, to come in and help drive what I hope will be kind of an official web standard to make development like this a little bit easier in the future, and essentially get some of those changes that we want to see to make our apps better, but also that you want to see to make your apps better, right? So definitely check it out. I think Timothy Hatcher's tweet that's pinned up there, we'll have a link where you can go find out more and join that group. And they're really just getting started. It's relatively new, basically just announced. So, they're working through some of the foundational changes, and hopefully we'll get into what it's going to be like for the future of web extensions. So I think now so Mitch, as the director of product B2C at 1Password here, can you walk us through quickly, just in case people haven't seen, the features of 1Password for Safari, this new web extension, what it's like, just kind of riff with me real quick and tell me what you love about it / what people should love about it if they haven't seen it.
So it's almost hard to name all the features because they're all the features that we've had at this point and built up over the course of years in our desktop Safari web extension. And it almost is hard to believe that suddenly they're all here on mobile. Like it's both hard to believe and obvious. So for instance, you go to a page and you go to sign in and you see the same menu with the same suggestions in the same order. And it's using all of our AI and our logic to determine what to suggest to you. And you tap on them. And again, it's using the filling logic that we've, and by we, I mean, of course, you and Nick and team have perfected over the years. And it just works, right? And we can fill all these pages that like the iOS Autofill API couldn't fill by itself. We can fill your TOTP. You don't have to copy it to the clipboard anymore. We can fill automatically across multiple pages. And it's so obvious. Of course, it should work that way. And it almost, even after just a few days of using it, it feels like it has to work that way. And that's what's so great about it. It feels inevitable. Like, how could you go back to not having this on your phone? And that's without even getting into sort of some of the really advanced features that just build on top of what we've ever been able to do on mobile before, some which are brand new to desktop as well, like the privacy.com integration, which allows you to create virtual credit cards. I can't test that because I'm in Canada, so I can't even test our own feature.
That's my favorite feature on mobile, though, now. That's the thing. In the middle of the night when I'm buying random things off of websites, I love using privacy.com cards and creating them and just signing up right there. And I will tease that this time next week, we will have another integration into 1Password that will be global. Everybody can see it and use it. And I really look forward to sharing that with everyone next week. And hopefully we'll maybe do another Twitter space to talk about it.
So to confirm, it will work in Canada?
I know you all have an election today, so I assume you'll still have internet next week. I don't know enough about Canadian politics to say, but I would assume absolutely should work in Canada and all over the world.
This is great news for Canada and therefore the world. That's like another sort of feature that's not really a feature, is just the knowledge that from now on, whatever we add to this extension is just going to be on my iPhone. That's just life-changing, right? Like, it's going to be on my Mac, it's going to be on my iPhone, it's going to be on my gaming PC through this extension, and it's going to work the same way. And we're not going to say, oh, well, the mobile version doesn't have this feature yet. I don't want to worry about what device I'm on to get access to all the rich features that we're building. And I mean, you've shown me it's possible with today's release.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I think, unless you two want to tell some more story about our back history, I kind of think it's a little bit boring. We can, if someone wants to ask us the question, we'd be happy to talk about our old app extension, how we got there. One of my favorite stories to tell, and we actually have Dave Tier, one of the founders of 1Password here, so he can probably tell it better than me, is how 1Password used to swizzle Safari before there was even extensions to get 1Password working. So we have a wealth of history to talk about. But I don't really think that's as interesting as kind of what we've launched today and what we've already talked about. So I'd love to open it up to questions. And if you have a question, feel free to request to come up on stage here. If you are another extension developer and you worked on something you're proud of and you want to promote here, please request and come tell us that as well. If you want to talk about iOS 15 and other features we didn't cover, like how you can now use live text to actually scan like gift cards and add them to 1Password. That's a pretty cool feature that just magically comes as part of iOS 15. Just really anything. Opening it up for questions. All right. For the folks that don't know, I'll recover this. Twitter Space, you have to be on an iPhone to get up on stage. You press the little microphone button in the bottom left-hand corner there, and you can request to come up on stage if you have a question for the group. And while we wait for that, I think, Oliver, I think it's your job to tell us a little bit more about the development experience of 1Password for Safari and how it worked for you.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, from the UK.
Yeah, right from the UK. I try a different microphone setup every time I do a Twitter space, so hopefully I sound all right. But the development experience for the new extension has been really exciting. We've taken this opportunity to redesign some of the UI, so it hopefully looks more familiar if you've been trying any of the early access builds of 1Password 8. And we've been able to sort of experiment with how we can make things look great on the iPhone and the iPad, and then that comes to other places as well. So just by improving the general extension pop-up, then we're shipping improvements into the extension that we have on the desktop as well. So that's really great.
And further too, these components are going to find their way into more and more of our places that we show item details and everything else that 1Password does. And like you say, Ollie, as we improve these components, as we improve the UI, the entire 1Password app and ecosystem is going to move up with us.
Question.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
So in those 70 days, what was the hardest part? What took the most time? Because I know we had a web extension and now it's on iPhone, but I don't know which part took up most of that effort to get from one to the other.
You want to answer that one, Nick?
Yeah, I think Ollie, you want to jump in there first, and then I'll follow you.
That's a good question, but I don't know if I can immediately think of a good answer.
Oh, come now, Ollie. There was some fun. I think one of the things that we started with was, as I mentioned, we had to adapt the entire set of UI to. I mean, on the iPad, it looks pretty much And then, this is what we've said, like the iPad experience is the desktop experience. And so as you use your iPad, it looks and feels exactly like you would be using on your Mac or your Windows PC or wherever you find yourself using 1Password. On iPhone, it is a very different experience. And so trying to make the UI fit within the bounds of the popover space, trying to make it work in all the different, places, orientations. One of the things that we have is, in-page suggestions so that you can fill credit cards, logins, create privacy cards all directly within where you're doing the web stuff. So as you log into a site, you see our stuff directly in the page. Turns out Safari works somewhat differently on mobile when you have touch and overflow scrolling and everything. And so there was a lot of things that started to work, but just were slightly different. And we, work to make it the experience that you expect across all the different 1Password platforms.
Yeah, I think we weren't really positioned yet to bring the entire design language we've been working on for 1Password 8 over to Safari. I think so. I was the only one, believe it or not, that called they were going to release web extensions on iOS, and it was more of a prayer than a a good prediction. But when that happened, we definitely had to shift a lot of our priorities to make it here on day one, right? And so I'm really excited with how it turned out, because we did kind of release a whole suite of kind of improvements and refresh the app and brought forth a lot of the consistency that we've been working on with our new design language. And I think that's rolling out to the rest of the browsers this week as well, which is really awesome. So we'll be able to see that everywhere. Just kind of waiting for some of the reviews. It'll be either this week or next week, but basically that consistent design language will kind of roll out to the rest of the browsers. And I guess while I have a few minutes, I will remind folks, if you have a question, feel free to request to come up on stage. Nick or I will bring you in, and feel free to ask us anything. But I will say, for the group, if you are interested in getting into kind of extension development, I will note that one of the hurdles is working and publishing with all the major companies, right? So like we have to work with Google, we work with Microsoft, we work with Mozilla, and we work with Apple to get these apps out and launched, right? And we have obviously a SKU for our iOS app, but we also have a SKU for the macOS extension as well. And so that is one of the hurdles, and it does make it a little challenging to launch something on the very same day. But one of the really, really cool parts of this new web extension and the extension we have shipped for iOS is that is the exact same extension running on your desktop in Chrome, for example, on your desktop in Firefox. So we actually resolved some issues that we never wanted to invest time in. Well, I wouldn't say we didn't want to, we just didn't have the resources to. So for example, in Firefox, web extensions allow you to be kind of in the extension menu. And then when the popover opens, or the pop-up, as they call it, opens, you get this more compact view. And so 1Password previously did not really look good there. But now when you get that one pane, when you get that view, you actually get the same experience that you're seeing on the iPhone. So you get the kind of one pane view that you see for 1Password on the iPhone. So that's really, really cool to essentially bring that responsive design over. And now it has additional uses for us. And that was kind of a cool win of the experience. Our next big hurdle is essentially hoping that all of the major browser manufacturers get together and time the Manifest v3 rollout for web extensions that Google is really heavily pushing to be consistent, so that basically the next big overhaul of 1Password will be essentially quite a big performance improvement actually on iOS. Like the performance is really good already, but our initial assumptions when developing the web extension would be we would always have that persistent background page. And so we'd always be able to basically have your items ready to go in memory, the overviews parsable for URLs and a lot of those things. We got everything working for iOS. It works really well, but it's going to work freaking awesome when we re-architect the app to have that presumption of essentially any time our entire background page can be torn down. And be happy to kind of talk more about the overall architecture of web extensions, because it is pretty interesting. But I don't want to just talk everyone's ears off. So I'm going to switch back to Mitchell and see if he has anything he wants to add to that conversation.
So when you say it's the same extension, like, is the desktop extension now responsive? Is it touch friendly? Exactly how much is it the same extension?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is responsive. So 1Password has had this feature where you can pop it out, essentially, like open it in a new window. And if you kind of drag that to a smaller viewport, you'll get the kind of one pane view that we're shipping on Safari. Like I said, it's going to take us about a week to roll out all of the changes that you see in Safari. That was our priority, to hit that launch date. But then you'll have all of that. Touch friendly is a good part. I think right now we kind of assume iOS and iPad is a touch device. And so we're going to have to look at ways to kind of expose that API for, say, like a Windows machine, right? To find out if it's a touch device. And then, oh, well, we already did. See, look at these. You want to talk about it then, Nick? What did you do?
I mean, do I want? Yeah, we can definitely talk about it.
People are crushing it.
Yeah, no, there's only a couple places where we actually had to assume when iPad app existed because we did some piece from it. Everything else we tried to do within the context of, progressive enhancement and web sort of standardy things. And so in that case, we are checking the things that exist on the device. So if the device supports touch, we actually end up trying to change the UI. So the pop-up will have different touch size elements, or, the buttons will be bigger so that they're better touch targets. And those are fully based on what the device supports, and not like that it's an iPhone. Because it would be really easy to just say like, oh yeah, it's an iPhone or an iPad. So like, let's just bake into our build that it is that thing. So make it look X, Y, or Z. But again, the whole point of this is that we get to build these components that go across all the different platforms and all the different things that we get to support here at 1Password, and really make the best experience possible no matter where you are with these components, because they get to be shared from our desktop app to our web extension to our website.
Yeah, the big one for me, being a previous Brain developer, and for those of you who don't know, the Brain is what we call essentially all of our filling and item save logic in 1Password. And it's essentially this project that has almost always existed. It has changed languages, it has changed leaders, but it still exists today. Having that consistent experience allows us to really invest heavily in filling and saving, and know that that's going to affect, the billion plus iOS devices out there, as well as all of our desktop browsers and that kind of thing. So I think if we were going to talk about where we go from here, that's definitely a place where I'm hoping to see we continue investing a bunch of time, because we've made some incredible improvements with regards to filling and saving credit cards and some of those things that just didn't perform nearly as well in 1Password as it used to. But it's one of those problems that essentially always has a place for improvement. So I think this is a really good time to kind of shout out and say, hey, if you run into some issues in Safari, if you run into issues filling, saving, we want to hear about that, because we're always looking to improve. And believe it or not, it's kind of a challenge to make something that works on every password or every website in the world, but it is kind of our goal to do so. And I think that is one of the places where I'm already like loving in-page suggestions on iPhone, but I also already see this is a place where we didn't really have to worry about previously, and we can make it so much better. So like, I think getting this launch out of the, launched was a big hurdle, 72 development days, including WWDC. But, oh man, I'm super excited for the rest of this year while we keep improving it, and super excited for next year as we start launching more features across all platforms using this new technology. Oh, also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, hello, Google. If anybody works here at Google, we are here and ready to get web extensions working on Android. You are the last folks that we're just call me, send me a DM, hook us up. We would love to start working on that right away.
And they invented it. They have no excuse.
Yeah. I mean, that is the I'm not gonna place any bets, but I'm very ready for web extensions to come to Android, because once we have that, we're everywhere with the same exact interface app. And 1Password in the browser has gotten super freaking awesome. Like so many people, I still hear every day, I think, about somebody who finds out, hey, you can actually add your TOTP one-time password secrets into 1Password, and they will automatically generate and fill those things for you on the website. And one of the cool features about this web extension is you can go into item details for an existing login item you've already created, and you can go into the little overflow menu, and you can actually scan a QR code directly from the browser and add that secret into 1Password. So as someone like myself who invests heavily in adding kind of TOTP to every service that supports it, I save all of that onto my login items in 1Password. And, that is under the exact same end-to-end encryption like any other secret we have in 1Password. But holy cow, having that sync to all of my way too many Apple devices now, and Windows machines and everything, and just having immediate access there is it's really awesome.
So we had a request from the room. So, Drew,
nice.
How you doing?
Hi, you have a question for the group?
Yeah, I do. Hi, thanks, guys. And by the way, I've been a 1Password customer for a very long time, so I really appreciate the hard work. I have one question. So if you open 1Password, let's say you restart your phone and you open 1Password while you're browsing a Twitter, and it brings up a web view, and you need to log in via a web view in Twitter, you have to enter your 1Password every time, right? But if I go to the app and then I enter my 1Password at the same time, then it'll always be good. I guess my question is, anytime the phone resets in iOS 15, is there a way to get it where no matter what app I use 1Password in, once I enter my 1Password and then use my Face ID or my Touch ID, that it can remember that? Because right now I basically would have to go manually to the app, enter my 1Password, after my phone had been restarted, and then I would be able to, just use Touch ID or Face ID. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So there's a couple things there, and Nick can probably answer this question better, but I will say my brother-in-law has the same problem, and that is the app extension today, the existing app extension that we used to have, kind of legacy that we used in Safari. You did have to launch the 1Password iOS app and essentially authenticate there before Face ID would start working. We have made some improvements there with the web extension. So, but we do have, after you restart the device, you do have to enter your account password once, and maybe Nick can go through the details there. And I think that's something we already have feedback for to make better.
Yeah, I think we do have feedback in that realm. And yes, there are definitely ways that you don't just always get unlocked. So thank you for that. I'll go and make sure your feedback is noted there. When it comes to restarting, we do have to take your password again and just in Safari to validate that you are the person that you're supposed to be. And when it comes to web views, that's unfortunately a small thing here. Is all of the web extension stuff that we get to talk about today and that we're super excited about is only in Safari.app and not in web views. So for those using non-Safari browsers like Chrome, that is not something we can actually support yet today. But we are hopeful to see some movement there because, again, it's such a great feature that we get to do here. So kind of a bug there that we can definitely make sure it gets put in the right people's hands.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. And like I said, been a happy customer for 7 years, so I appreciate everybody's work. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I will like to note now, we haven't talked about it. We didn't talk about it in the blog post. I don't even know how to frame it, so we're going to just kind of riff on this a little bit. But essentially, one of the things we're trying with the 1Password web extension is essentially when you unlock it once in Safari, it's unlocked all day. So you'll have access to the inline menu, you'll have access to the popover, and holy cow, does it make the experience so much better. So over the years, since when iOS first launched, I'll tell you my old man story. But essentially, when you used to have an iPhone and you would do that like clear all your data reset dance to go pick up your new iPhone, it would take like an hour, right? Because it would actually overwrite all of the disk because they didn't do the deep level system encryption that they do today. Well, iOS is actually a very, very secure platform. And so one of the really cool things about the Safari web extension that I know Dave really pushed for and I was super excited about, and Mitch basically said, this is game changing, is when you unlock 1Password in Safari, it's unlocked all day. So you can actually set that to a week. I recently have been playing with kind of a week unlock, and my iPhone's always in my pocket. It's always locked. Face ID is so good. The platform is so good. And by kind of opening it up and allowing users to have this kind of longer unlock time, it really makes the entire 1Password experience easier for existing users, more approachable for new users, and something that I would love to see us kind of keep pushing forward as we go into the future on other platforms, because it makes a world of a difference, especially that inline menu, the popover, just really awesome. Of course, it's completely customizable in the iOS app. There's a new Safari kind of option there that allows you to kind of customize that lock time. But I would love to hear people's feedback on it, because it really makes a difference for us. So we got another person who's looking to come up and ask a question. So go ahead, my friend. Twitter Spaces is weird sometimes. I don't know if we got it or not. If you didn't come up on stage, feel free to request again. I do apologize. This is our first time using Twitter Spaces, and it's also we've in our little past playing around with it. It's sometimes a little buggy, so people kind of drop in and out. It looks like we have another question. Yeah, we might have crashed the app. All right, we have someone joining us on stage right now. I don't like to say people's names because I might mess it up. People pronounce my name all the time wrong. So feel free to introduce yourself and when you get up on stage and ask your question. I believe we have someone attempting to connect right now.
Okay.
Twitter, we might have broken Twitter Spaces. We'll see. We'll wait a few seconds to see if we can get it.
Too many people. Oh.
Hey, folks.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty great job with the app. I just got the update. I've been trying out the features, and I'm so glad that it works so much better. It works like the web experiences in Chrome and the desktop browsers that I'm used to. Pretty awesome job with that. And yeah, I think one of the questions I wanted to ask was already briefly mentioned, was related to WebView. I also work on with a company, when we have a iOS app, and we have app experiences inside that, like web experiences inside that. So again, it would be pretty lovely to get that feature one day. I don't know if you folks already talked to Apple about that, or if there is any timelines or anything that you managed to get, if they're actually planning to do that, extend extensions over to WebView. But yeah, I mean, that feature would actually be great. So yeah, I think that's it from me.
No, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up. We did, of course, week of WWDC, raise that with Apple, and we do have a feedback filed on that. I would say any iOS developers out there that are looking for similar functionality, please file a feedback with Apple. It can make a meaningful difference when they see folks interested in that feature. Completely agree. If 1Password could work in web views, I think that's the next step, right? So there's one of like 3 things that we're really hoping to see next year on iOS. Will we see it in a point update? Honestly, I'm not really sure. Probably not. If you've been following the iOS 15 rollout, there's a lot of features that are going to need to kind of get worked on and shipped between now and iOS 16. But absolutely, we have feedback filed with Apple for that one, and we would love to see 1Password added, or not just 1Password, but all web extensions accessible in web views, because that would kind of make it all flow even better. Luckily, iOS Autofill is still very good, right? You miss out on automatic TOTP filling and a lot of the cool features that the web extension has. But in a few places where I have been left into a web view, I have used iOS autofill and it works pretty well. And I've also just gotten kind of in the habit of hitting the little Safari button and taking it straight to Safari.app. Do you have anything to add there before our next question, Nick?
I think the biggest thing is just letting Apple know in some way. So feedbacks, tweeting about it, getting all that sort of stuff. That's always the best way to let them know that like this is something we want to see. And I mean, like you said, Bayer, the password autofill is a great feature. I mean, it's been what we had up until this point for Safari, and it's the way that we get to fill in apps and all the other parts of the iOS platform. So there's we can't wait to see if it comes to web views, but we're not going to get a timeline there, of course.
I mean, you can't view Ted Lasso's secret shortbread recipe in iOS autofill, so I'm just saying web extensions are a little bit better, but yeah, absolutely. Happy to see it.
That's fair. That's fair.
Drew, I know how to pronounce your name. Do you have a question for the group, my friend?
Yeah, I do. And thanks for taking me again. I hope I'm not taking up anybody else's time. Quick question
absolutely.
For maybe, I don't know, Dave, Andre, Nick, you mentioned working with Apple, which is very interesting. So, Apple obviously has their save and keychain, and they're kind of there, kind of prompting you to generate a strong password. And I don't know if this is a forbidden question, but is there any concern about Apple kind of maybe trying to take over the spot of 1Password? I mean, I certainly hope not, because I love you guys. But have you had that discussion or that talk where you live and where Apple lives in terms of password management?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would love for Mitch or Dave to answer that one. I just want to give my 2 cents real quick first, and that is everybody should use a password manager, whether it's 1Password or the thing built into your operating system or the thing built into your browser. Like, first and foremost, me personally, as long as you're using some form of password manager, you're on the right step. But Dave, it looked like you were going to say something. Can you introduce yourself and answer the question, Dave?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Dave. I've been working at 1Password for a little while. Founded it with Rustam, geez, I guess it's about 15 and a half years ago now. It's hard to imagine when you think about it in those terms. My daughter's 15 now, and like she was basically born when 1Password was born. So it's amazing to think about. But no, it's a really interesting question. Basically, I don't know. There's different ways I can take it, but I think passwords are just too important for Apple not to get into. Like, it's a key part of their platform. I think we've all been on like websites and we need to log in somehow, and we use like we've signed up with the Apple ID, right? And it just scans your face and logs you in, and like you don't do anything. It's really amazing. And quite frankly, Rustam and I got into this business because passwords are just a tremendous pain in the ass, and we wanted to make that pain go away. So I don't really mind if other people make the pain go away, as if they could do a fantastic job, that's great. But your question, and I appreciate it, is like, well, okay, well, if Apple's getting into your business, what are you guys going to be doing? And it's a great question, and basically, if we're always pushing the forefront, like if we're always pushing forward, we're a much smaller company than Apple. We can move much faster in so many ways. And so if we're always pushing forward, I think we're always going to be fine. And you can really see that on the stuff we do on the business side of the world, and like the family accounts, and cross-platform, cross-browser, like all this type of stuff. Like I I don't want to sound too cocky, but like basically don't worry about us. We're doing fine. Basically, back to Andrew's point, as long as everyone finds ways to use strong, unique passwords on all their sites, I'm going to be happy. And if someone can just make the pain of passwords just go away, I'm going to be happy as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's well said. And I don't think you can iterate that point enough. Is essentially right now, one of the best values of 1Password is the sharing with your team and family. For example, believe it or not, they don't give me access to the 1Password Twitter account with 140,000 followers or whatever, which is pretty good because honestly, you never know what could happen, right? I don't want access to that. But to kick off a Twitter space under the 1Password domain, I got invited to a new 1Password vault today with the Twitter login in it that uses 2FA, and I was able to sign in on an iPhone. And after today, my access is going to be revoked, and I never need that access again, right? To be honest, I'm going to put a call out if there's anybody with Apple, please, not just for our business, but please make like photo sharing with your family and even teams better before jumping into the password sharing market, right? Because there's a lot of things I love about iCloud, but there's a lot of things that I would love to see some improvement on. And sharing photos at full quality with my family, that's the thing that 1Password doesn't do that I would love to see. And 1Password really is the industry leading in our ability to kind of share and have security scores for your logins across your entire company and those kind of things. So great question, though. That is something that we hear very often. So, and we're doing awesome. Oh man, we have our friend, Ben. Would you be, if you get connected, hopefully, could you introduce yourself and then ask your question? There it is. Your speaker, Ben.
Hey, folks. Ben Woodruff here. I've worked at 1Password for about 11 years. And I just wanted to add to the conversation about, potentially getting Sherlocked by Apple. And I think part of the answer there, too, is that we can probably be in a lot more spaces than Apple can. I really don't anticipate, and I could be proven wrong, and we'll see. We'll see what direction they go. But I really don't anticipate Apple making a Firefox extension or building a Linux desktop app, right? Which are both things that we do and do well.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
love if Apple made a Linux desktop app. that would make my year.
I mean, we both, yeah. First off, absolutely. I'm also waiting for Windows to go completely Linux based, and then maybe I'll try that out. But absolutely, there's the one thing that's really cool about this space that we're in is there's so much of the market that isn't using password managers or secrets managers, right? Like 1Password does a lot more than passwords. I think our CEO, Jeff Shiner, told us the other day his number one kind of thing that he has stored in 1Password is documents, right? So he has all of these contracts and documents and all of these things in 1Password. He's shared things with me through 1Password that are kind of confidential documents directly to me. And that's something that, I think I'm hoping we actually expand on. One of the really cool things is once the password problem is solved, 1Password can actually start looking at other areas of your kind of digital well-being and looking at making those areas better, right? Unfortunately, to this day, there's way too many people still using password 1. I mean, go check out Troy Hunt, Have I Been Pwned, see some of his metrics. It's absolutely wild what's out there for the majority of users. And that is a place that 1Password is trying to push, right? We're trying to make the product easier to use. And folks like Apple and Google pushing in their areas make it a more friendly, a more knowable thing. And then it makes it so much easier for a company like us to say, hey, we kind of offer you this experience outside of the browser manufacturer, platform manufacturer that works cross-platform. And it's a really cool space to be in for us. Any other questions from the group? Any other web extension developers out there want to come up and talk about their new apps that they launched, or any questions about web extensions? We have a few of the big thinkers in the company here that kind of work on that every day.
So I can jump in with something quickly. We've all been reading Twitter today, which is always really exciting. Like, please keep tweeting about your experience with the extension. And if you've got any feedback, then tweet either the 1Password accounts or any of us. We'd all love to hear it. But a common question I've seen today is, if I have the extension now, should I be leaving the autofill turned on, or should I be turning that off? So I'm curious, everyone else here, what are your thoughts on that?
So password autofill, absolutely.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Leave it on, because that's how you can fill into iOS apps and into those Safari web views. Absolutely leave it on. For, like 1Password still respects the iOS autofill APIs, and we would love to see those actually get expanded to do more things. For example, Apple actually does filling of TOTP this year. They released that, or announced it at least. I think it released. And I would love if those APIs were accessible for us to use as well, because they are the best way to, say, fill your login information into the Twitter app. So
another thing too is there's sites still out there that use SMS-based TOTP, and so for those, like the password autofill or the keyboard filling is going to suggest those directly in line, even though we as 1Password can't get access to your text messages to actually offer that in our own menu. So it's another great option to add and augment what we can add to the browser itself.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild, actually. Like, you tap the inline menu in 1Password to fill your login information. You click login, you get a text message with a code, and it shows up there right on the keyboard. I'm feeling like some people are going to think 1Password does that, right? Like, it feels so natural, us working together. And I know, that's one of the things that we're trying to do is anytime Apple wants to kind of work with us to work on something that can be used by us and really any password manager, right? Like, other password managers rely on those APIs very heavily. I haven't actually, it's been kind of a wild day, so I haven't actually caught up and seen what other services have launched, if they've launched web extensions, but they absolutely use those APIs. And I think it's best for the platform. It's best for Apple. It's definitely best for us if those APIs continue to exist and if they continue to get better.
I think that was well put.
With that note, we said we would do an hour. We've done an hour and 3 minutes. If there's anybody else who wants to get that question in, please request to come up on stage. If not, I think we'll close this out. I don't have any theme music, but if you did miss part of this, I think Nick has been recording the space. So we'll find some way to put that up on the Wild Wild Web and allow people to access it. Looks like we have one more question. This will be the last one. But hey, please feel free to follow myself, Nick, Dave, Oliver, Mitch, Ben. They all work here at 1Password. We're always happy to answer questions on Twitter. You can always reach us at support.1password.com. Send us an email. Join us on our forums. We're going to have a Reddit AMA on Thursday, so you can see my blog post. If you could pin that tweet, Nick, to the announcement blog post, we're going to have a Reddit AMA over there. We'll answer more questions in the text form if that's something that's more comfortable for you. And I think the last person that had asked to come up disappeared. So we'll give it one more second to see if they did. Because I did want to. Oh, there it is. All right, we're gonna bring you up. And also, please deliver some feedback to the @1Password account. If you like this Twitter space, this is the first time we're doing it. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's fun to essentially get the same group of friends that I work with together and talk about the stuff we're proud of working on. If you found it valuable, it would be really valuable for us to hear that feedback on Twitter, because then, the Daves and founders of the world will say, hey, when's that next Twitter space? So I think it would be really cool, something to do in the future. All right. Do you have a question for the group, my friend?
Hello. No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say your password manager is awesome. It helped me out a lot.
Awesome. That is honestly, that is one of the reasons why I work here today. It is incredible to work with. I don't even like calling it a product. The product people got me calling it a product. To me, I've been using 1Password for over 13 years. It used to help me out a lot when I was deployed overseas in the Middle East working for the United States Army. I would have to jump on some public computer to send an email home, and I would pull out my iPhone 3GS and get my password to Gmail, send an email to my mom or whatever. And yeah, it was 1Password that literally helped me stay connected to my family. And it's something that I know is a driving force behind myself and a heck of a lot of people I work with, because we're working on something that we truly believe in that we think is awesome, that helps humanity, literally. People sometimes laugh when I say that, but literally helps humanity. So thank you for that comment. I honestly couldn't have ended it better. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, this is a format, something that you got value out of, you enjoyed talking to, please let us know. And I think we'll probably try to do it again. Any closing thoughts there, Nick, Mitchell, Dave? Or should I end it right there?
It's pretty hard to follow what you just said. I mean, I wanted to say, like, I've been using the product for, as you mentioned, I mean, I've been using 1Password for, over 10 years now. And I can't say I was in the Middle East, so I mean, I don't know if I should even continue, but it's definitely one of the reasons that for the last 2 years I've called this place home, because the people here are great. It's something I believe in, and I'm so happy to help be, here pushing this forward with everyone else.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for everyone who joined us, who stayed up late, like my friend Oliver over there in the UK. And I can't wait to see kind of more feedback. And thanks again. Have a great night.